Hello, Facebook land. How the heck are you doing tonight? We have another amazing episode for you right now, right here on Jon Ferrian Live. So if you've never watched Jon Ferrian Live before, this is a treat tonight, guys. We've got an amazing guy named Jason Blair from Alpine, Wyoming. He's going to be in here talking with us tonight about an accident that he had back in 2007. 2007, they had an accident. They were out riding, and we'll go through the story tonight in detail. But this was an avalanche, not a lot different than a lot of others. But one thing that happened is because of the people that were involved, some major things had happened as a result of this avalanche. And the industry, the face of backcountry riding has changed since then with the bringing on of next level riding clinics and what Dan Adams has brought to the table because of his involvement with this avalanche here with Jason Blair. So we'll get through all that tonight. If you guys haven't done this before, you know the routine. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you've been doing this weekend. Have you been living large, having a great weekend? Let me remind you what living large is all about, guys. Living large is living life to the fullest, making the most of every day. And when you make the most of every day, it could be an epic day, could be a crappy day, but bottom line is you're making the most of it. And then finally, we're making a difference to others in this world. That's what we do, guys. We're here on this show educating people. We're giving them information on avalanche awareness and education. We're just walking away and, making a difference in the sled community, trying to grow some things in a positive way to keep making this place the most amazing place ever for us all to hang out. So I appreciate you guys jumping in. We got David Wagner watching. We got Ian McNichol watching. We got, who else here? We got Todd Kramer's watching. We got a good crew coming on in. So don't forget, if you share the show tonight, share and win. If you watch it, share it. You're eligible to win some amazing prizes this week from Fly Racing. Go to their website and check it out. But we got some Fly Racing socks that we're going to give away. I'm going to actually give away 4 pair of those socks, guys. Based on the value of these socks, we're going to give away 4 pair of them. So one of each color. Just as a call out, Fly Racing just updated their website this week on August 14th, last Friday. And so I think these socks are still available on there. But if not, we'll work something out. We'll get you some good socks that are the new ones that are current there. But let me drop the thing here with the share and win contest. And I'll stop the music for a second. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the next image you're going to see here next, which is Jon Ferrian Live. So this image here, I just want to tell you guys, JFL. So the J and the L are in white, the F in red. This is a new logo that we just launched here just in the last few weeks. And this logo is an embroidery logo that's available on hats. So JFL with the Live Large under it. On the hat, we're not including the Jon Ferrian Live. It gets to be too small for the stitching. But just the JFL with the Live Large, you can get a hold of a hat with this logo on it right now on the website. And just as a reminder, all of the merchandise, the Live Large merchandise, that's available on the website. It's livelarge.itemorder/sale. That website has all the merchandise on it, and all of the profits from that website go directly to ARI for what we call Live Large University. The Live Large University program is a program that's put together to provide avalanche education for motorized users, both for pro-level folks as well as recreational folks, and we're taking applications right now. If you haven't already, go to the ARI website, look up the scholarship page and what the scholarships that are going on, and get your submission in there. So this is what it's all about, guys. Let me drop this logo on and bring our buddy Jason Blair on in 3, 2, and 1. How's it going, my friend?
Good evening, John. How are you tonight?
I'm doing awesome.
Live large. What did you do this weekend?
Oh, man. So Friday night, we've been doing check this out, Jason. So you and I got to hang out here a few weeks back. And, your visit with me over that vacation that I took, that was one of the weeks where we didn't do it. But since this whole COVID thing started, we have a collective group of friends, locally here in my area that most of them are snowmobilers, a few of them are other neighbors and stuff that we hang out with. But almost every single Friday night since like March, we've been doing campfires every Friday night or sometimes Saturday night, depending on the weather. And we had an amazing time with some friends come over who are from Reno, Nevada. They're staying with their mother who's sick right now over in Port Angeles, Washington. Came over and visited. So they were here along with our regular group of friends. Yeah. Then on Saturday, we went out up to the mountains where a lot of our riding takes place, and we went kayaking and had an amazing
view.
amazing views up there. And
Man.
like a lot of those pictures you saw in the kayaking pictures there, the background, the mountains in the background, those are
Mhm.
the mountains that a lot of the mountains that we ride in the winter months. And so we look from the mountains down on that lake in the wintertime, and then from the lake up into the mountains in the summertime.
Yeah, it's pretty neat here as well.
Yeah.
As you know, visiting Alpine, um, I get a ride right out of my backyard, just with like Dan Adams and a lot of the guys around the valley.
Yeah.
We're pretty blessed.
Yeah, for the
It's pretty
first time
cool.
ever, I got to visit Alpine, Wyoming, and I also got to meet you then in person here. Geez, when I don't know, it's got to be close to 3 weeks now that it's been since we got to bump into each other, which
Yep.
is the conversation that drove us to drive this show down the road here, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
that's what brought us to.
Told you I've never done anything like this before. A little nervous, but
Yeah, that's
we'll
the
give
cool
her hell.
part. The cool part is
Yeah,
it's just you and I having a conversation with a few thousand of our closest friends
exactly.
listening
Yeah,
and hoping to learn something. So it's
yeah.
amazing. But Jason, what I'm really excited about is this industry and the messages that we've gotten across through the Jon Ferrian live show, live large and all the things that are going out there is things that aren't always really obvious to me. Is that there's really big influential people like yourself and of course your coworker Dan Adams who
Yeah,
actually follow the show on a regular basis
yeah.
and love it. So like why don't you I just was
I do.
amazed when you told me how passionate you
It,
are about the show and all the things you've learned, but just give us some examples of some of the shows that you've just kind of been grasped to and kind of what draws you in and why you're so excited about this format and this show and then why you're so eager to be on here. I'd love to have you kind of share some of that with the audience.
Yeah. So, I follow your show. Um, Usually it's the little name people that I like to pop in on.
Yeah.
Don't know anybody's story, and it's kind of cool to see, what their story is and what's driving them to, per se, go to the next day, keep striding.
Hmm.
You hear a lot of people that have disabilities that they
Yeah.
can't ride, and we at Next Level, we like to bring everybody to the table and pull the good qualities out of people, put a smile on somebody's face, when
Yeah.
they're down the dumps, that they have,
Yeah.
something going on in their life that's, um, like missing a limb, like riding
Yeah.
with Joe Martinez.
Yep.
I have a really close friend here in the Valley, Amy,
Yep. Amy
and
Jenkins. So I know, and she's been on the show as well. Yep.
yeah, amazing to see these people get out and do something
Yeah.
with them, and put a
Yeah.
smile on their face, and it's vice versa. I learned something from them. I try following Joe Martinez's footsteps quite a bit and
Yeah.
ride with one arm once.
Oh yeah, I
Man,
have.
is it?
I've tried it. I got a friend here locally too. Actually, the couple that was here with me this weekend and stayed at our place is the Potrats. So it's Mike Potrats and Sharon Potrats,
Yep.
and Mike and Sharon are married probably I think 6-7 years ago or so, and so a stepmom. But Mike's son is a gentleman named Matt Potrats who was a
Mhm.
pro rider in the industry who also was in an avalanche and had his arm basically dislocated, similar
Yeah.
to Joe Martinez, and he's got a paralyzed arm now. And
Yeah.
so, I was actually out riding with him one time, and just out of curiosity, as I'm riding down the trail with him, I'm just like trying it. I'm just like, okay, how long can I ride with one arm just to see what it takes to do it?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I don't think I lasted more than 10 minutes. And
Yeah, I didn't either.
I had to grab the other handlebar and be like, and
Yeah.
so for these guys to be so like ambitious and persistent and,
It's
just
it's what keeps me going too.
yeah, no,
To see
exactly.
people like that.
But the other cool part is, Next Level Riding Clinic and what you guys do there. I think a lot of people who, from the industry who look into the industry and see all the things in the media and the publicity and all those things going on, they also look to places like, guys like you who are these pro level riders who are out there trying to make it happen. And then the part that isn't always really obvious to everybody is, and you kind of mentioned this, it's kind of call it the little guys or the no-name people that are out there that are trying to come into the sport and experience even a percentage of what we're all experiencing, right? Like yourself
Absolutely.
as a pro rider, the skills that you guys have to get out there in the backcountry, that's what drives people to sign up for a clinic at Next
Yeah.
Level Riding Clinic.
Yeah.
If you had to break it into percentages, and I could pretty much guess ahead of time, but I'm going to let you call it out. What percentages of riders do you put in the category of, beginner, intermediate, and advanced riders for people who actually come to your clinics?
So yeah, and it's not to be, disrespectful to
No, not at
people,
all.
but
It's the reality, because I experience
I
it every
was,
week at the snow parks too. When I take people from the clubs out and stuff too, and we bring new
yeah,
riders out all the time. So
yeah. There's probably 10% of those that shred.
yeah,
15 to 20 that are, legit about the sport and
yep,
want to learn,
yeah,
and were like me when I grew up. I was like, man, mountain bar, knee on the seat, love to do it, thought I was tearing the world up. And then we get on these newer machines,
yeah,
and you can't do that. You tip over. And so yeah, there's a really small amount of people that legitimately, shred. And
but that's the draw, is they all want to shred, and they
yeah,
come to experts like yourself and learn to shred, right? And so that's kind of the
yep,
cool part about this is,
yeah. And we give them fundamentals to take home,
yeah,
and kind of a
they,
little chunk of humble pie at the end of the day. They're
yeah,
like, man, I thought I knew this, and didn't. And I learn every day. Every day
yeah,
that I'm out there with, we teach female classes.
oh yeah,
I kind of touched on that with you when you were here, and I would have to say that that's probably my favorite. Those classes with the females in, they want to learn because their husbands buy them the best. They want them to be there,
yeah,
but that's their husband's second sled
yeah,
per se. So they build that sled to their husband's statue or whatever,
yeah,
and they're forced into riding that sled.
yeah,
And when we have a ladies class, we lower the handlebars down, and the husbands are like, well, why do you want to do that? And, it changes the perspective for a smaller gal,
yeah,
that can't finesse or, manhandle the sled per se. Makes it easier for them. So we set the sleds up for the gals,
yeah,
and it's cool to get them out on the
yeah,
backcountry and show them some techniques, throttle, brake control, and getting them over that little hurdle of being scared or nervous, because they're trying to get to that point A or point B,
yeah,
to follow their husbands, and
okay,
they're a nervous wreck. And it's like, well, why? Just
yeah.
take a deep breath and enjoy it. I mean,
Well,
it's a family orientated sport. Let's make it that way.
yeah,
Let's
and
make it fun.
one of the things that I very 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 consistently hear from pretty much every guide and instructor I've ever interacted with, and I think you and I have had the same conversation over a beer, is the idea that who is probably the best student, right? And it's when the women come to class versus the men come to class. Explain again. I've heard this story before, but I think we owe it to our guests here again. And here's what I'll tell you guys is, like, I'm going to be the bad guy here, right? I'm gonna make Jason be the nice guy. I'll be the bad guy. Is most of us, almost all of us, if we want to learn and be better, we need to check our ego and check our things at the door, right? Like, I've heard this comment over and over and over again. I've had conversations with Dan, I've had conversations with Matt Enns, I've had conversations with Brett Rasmussen, and it's
Yeah.
consistent every single time. "Quote unquote" guys show up at these clinics and they're like, "Let me show you what I can do," rather than coming in with like, "Hey, what can I learn from you?" Right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just talk us through some experiences and contrast them a little bit. Of course, we'll
I
keep
was,
everybody anonymous so that you're not going to make anybody
yeah,
mad, right?
no, it's all good. But yeah, back in the day, and to kind of throw myself under the bus,
Oh yeah,
I was that parking lot talker. I'd be like, hey, I got a brand new sled. Let's see how your sled acts towards it. And
yeah,
with the ladies, man, it's completely different. It's pretty humbling, to be a part of, something that maybe not drastically changes their
hmm,
perspective or their view on snowmobiling.
yeah,
And hopefully it's for the best. But yeah, it's pretty rad to be a part of that changes, a little light switch or
yeah,
whatever you want to per se, that they want to learn.
yeah,
There are very very few ladies that come into the class and be like, well, I can do that already, or I can do that, and it's like, man, you're making it easier for me to do this,
yeah.
and it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
definitely
not
cool.
coming in assuming that they already know what the heck they're doing, and they're not having to unlearn, skills that maybe
Yeah,
they've learned the wrong way, those kind of things, right? And so
yeah,
just, check everybody. But like as far as a
yeah.
percentage goes of male versus female signing up for your classes, I'm gonna have to go out on a limb and guess it's probably 75% male, 25% female, or is it more
Yeah.
balanced than that?
No, it's about that. We have two, sometimes three ladies classes a year.
Yeah,
And I wish it was balanced out 50-50.
yeah. Well,
When
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
When Dan started Next Level, the ladies were joining the guys,
Yeah,
and that was probably one of the tougher times through my career working with Dan, that you had to split the husband and wives apart.
yeah,
The wives kind of go into a little nutshell, and they don't want to open up to you, because, man, if I do that, then my husband's going to be mad because he's been telling me or showing me certain techniques.
yeah,
And I can't teach my wife how to ride by any means. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty tough. It's kind of a love-hate relationship with somebody like that.
yeah,
You're like, just try it, and you keep working and working and build their confidence up. And next thing you know, they're doing powder turns right next to you,
yeah,
getting stuck right next to you. And you look back and you're like, holy cow, you just pulled that line. And they're like, well, I struggled to get there when I was riding with my husband or my significant other, because I was always like forced into going there.
yeah.
And it puts them
Afraid,
out of their comfort zone
yeah, are afraid of making a mistake and
and
then,
making a mistake.
them being quote unquote yelled at or like talked
Yep.
to like, I told you to do it this way, right?
Yeah.
And so, just a heads up to all the guys out there, the best gift you can give your wives or your significant others is to
Sign
send
them
them
up for a
to a pro
class.
level clinic, right? And whether it's a
Sign them up
clinic
for a class.
clinic like this, and there's clinics all over the country, including, up in Canada and everywhere else too. But,
Yeah,
it's about growing the sport in a positive way. And,
absolutely.
as we make this whole ship rise in the industry, Jason and Dan will get their fair share. There's no doubt in my mind about that with the reputation that they've had. But I'd love
Yeah.
to shoot you guys some business if we can along the way. And so as you guys
And
make your plans this year, get signed up for some avalanche classes, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, and then also
yeah,
get signed up for skills riding, because skills riding really is about safe backcountry riding, right?
yeah, train
Uh,
management,
yeah, like I
going from point A to point B
yeah.
without getting injured.
Yeah, and train management from an avalanche standpoint, but also to your point from getting injured, right? Is
Yeah,
is is I think of my own riding skills over the years, and the times I've gotten into trouble or smashed my sled up or hurt. I'll be honest with you, it was because I wasn't a skilled rider at that time, right? And
yeah,
so putting on edge and getting into a situation that you freak out and let go of your sled and you go down and toast it into a tree,
yeah,
almost always with the right skill level, those situations are avoidable because now you can come up with an option A, B, or C. You're not
yep.
stuck with option A or option Z. Those aren't your only two
Yeah,
choices.
yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
yeah, cool. So Jason,
And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
seeing now, it's 2020. When I grew up, like back in the 80s, I'm not trying to date myself or nothing, but there was very few female, in the sport, in
Yeah,
that industry. And now it's pretty rad to see that there's probably, a 50-50 on, people traveling
that's
and
awesome.
people hanging out together.
Well, just seeing here in the comments, we got some amazing lady riders out there already. I'll just shout them out
Yeah,
to you. As we got Trish Ryan here watching, we've got
nice.
Lyric Murphy out here watching,
Hi,
and
Lyric.
and
Got
those
to meet
those
her last year.
those so far, I think, are the only two ladies I see making comments in the comments. If there's any other ladies out there watching tonight, feel free to drop it in the comments where you're watching from and give Jason a quick shout out. We'd love to hear from you.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
but Jason, let's go back just for a minute and give everybody a little more background about kind of where you grew up, kind of who's Jason, right? Before we even
Yeah,
got into
absolutely.
next level riding, and give us a short window of kind of who you are, and then we'll go back to that date in 2007 and talk through that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason Blair. I grew up in Jackson, Wyoming. Some of us were fortunate to stay there.
Yeah,
I traveled from after high school. I traveled to Arizona for a little bit. So I got a really awesome suntan for a couple years. Got to move back home. Had a job opportunity back in '98,
Okay.
and got reacquainted with Dan. It was a pretty cool, acquaintance. I grew up with him. All the original sled necks: Cameron Elliott, Ty Free, Chad Free, Cody Hansen, Dan, and he approached me one day and he says, "Hey, I'm building a sled for Snow West magazine, for Sledheads magazine. Would you mind airbrushing it?" And I'm like, "Well, heck yeah." Back then we didn't have wraps. This is early 2000,
Yeah.
2001, and so I kind of got my foot back in the scene with snowmobiling. I knew who the sled necks were, growing up, and I couldn't afford a snowmobile. So kind of barter system, I would do some work for a buddy and then I'd get to ride their sled for a day or two. And
That's
man,
awesome.
I hopped on that train and was able to go out with Dan a couple of times. And next thing you know, I'm not out riding with him, and he's filming with sled necks, and we're in American Fork, Utah, where he did his first backflip. Same spot that Jim Rippey and Court Hungerford, Chris Brandt, they all built this big, huge kicker. And Court Hungerford came down and said, told Dan, he says, "It's easy, man. Just keep it pinned." And
Just pin it.
I'm standing on top of the cornice where they built this booter, and man, I didn't even have any warning. Clayton, that was filming for Jason Moriarty, he didn't have a whole lot of warning. And next thing I know, Dan's upside down. He's like 20 feet in the air above me, and you could hear him scream. Just like it was the neatest damn thing ever. And from there on out, it's been a pretty rad journey with him. I finally was able to work up and save up for a snowmobile.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the raddest thing ever. I had big, tall bars on it, a wide front end, like all the hill climbers, the racers, and back then it was awesome. The taller you are, the taller your bars were supposed to be. That kind of how you thought about things. And
yeah, I remember the good old days. I had 10-inch handlebar risers on my Skidoo Rev chassis back in the day, and I look back at it now, and I'm like, "What in the heck were we thinking?" Right? It's like,
yep. And I kind of get goosebumps. I'm a little. Got to take a deep breath on this little story. December 2nd, 2007. We were out with 8 friends of ours.
And so let's lead up to that day just for a second here. And before we get into this, guys, I'll just tell you, now is the time, if you haven't already, share the show out, guys. Let's get the word out, get the message out. If you're watching this as a replay or otherwise, share it to your personal page, share it to your sled pages, your club pages. If you have a local safety page that you guys have with search and rescue, they love these kind of stories as well, because there's a lot of lessons learned from these messages. So please help get the word out. And then a quick shout out to Mary from Serona Pass Snowmobile Club for watching us here as well too. And so she says she's taken class 2 times up in Serona Pass as well. So awesome seeing women get involved here.
Absolutely.
So
pass the word around too. Share your knowledge that when you go to these classes, don't keep it bottled up to yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you're out there in the backcountry and you need to save a life, they're going to look to you for answers on. Hey, let's share the message. And
absolutely. So let's go back to at the time, December of 2007 was the day of the accident, but build us up to kind of who was your normal riding crew at that point? Did you have any kind of safety protocols or safety equipment you guys rode with? Describe to us kind of an average day in that era for you in hindsight. Look back at it in hindsight, and then we'll jump right to the day, and then we'll kind of tell the story from there.
So skiers had Avi bags, and man, were they expensive. So I just had a day pack, plastic shovel. I didn't have the high dollar equipment. I went to my local search and rescue, and I bought a used transceiver at the time. Really didn't know how to use it. I wasn't educated at all on, besides turning it on and off. Could go into search, but we never practiced with it. We never, I looked at the batteries and it was kind of a take your buddy's word for it that your transceiver is even on. little owned batteries were charged, fresh batteries in it, and having the proper equipment. Now, man, my backpack that I carry now is about 35 pounds, and it is loaded to the gills with, just the safety tools besides the metal bladed shovel now. A saw, and I carry this Mac Daddy of a saw because I get stuck like crazy in the trees.
Nice.
But yeah, having the updated technology. So if you have like an Ortobox or something that can be reprogrammed or software updates in them, keep those updates in them and learn how to use that equipment, because not having the proper equipment changed my life forever.
Yeah, and it's like, it sounds like back in those days, it was very similar to it was my first year that I ever started mountain riding ever. It was also 2007, and probably not too far from the date that you were there. I was up in Cook City, I think it was early January maybe, or something like that. And very similar, where the group we rode with had some level of awareness that these things called avalanches could happen, and we should wear beacons, and you probably should have a shovel, but it's okay if you don't. There was all these things, and here's the scary part, Jason, is like, I guarantee you somebody watching this show is still stuck in 2007, and that's the point I want to make, is that sometimes it's out of inexperience, sometimes it's out of ignorance, sometimes it's out of choice, but bottom line is, let's fast forward to current era of getting the education, getting the training, getting the equipment, and then going out in the backcountry and having a blast, right? And doing
practice with it.
Yeah, practice with it, right?
We got to practice with it, right?
All right. December 2007, start of the morning. What happened that day?
Yep. So we were out Cliff Creek area, which is towards Pinedale. So it's a little east from Jackson, kind of, east from where I'm living at. Snow wasn't the greatest down low, but the higher we climbed in elevation, the better the snow got. So we were like racing down the trail. Everybody had all the newer sleds, and I'm on this kind of a modded out Skidoo at the time, carbureted. And I was like, man, I hope once I climb up in elevation, it's jetted properly. So it's like one thing after another that's running through my head, and not looking around, checking my surroundings like we do today. We just kept pounding down the trail, getting higher and higher in elevation, and a place up Cliff Creek, which is called Claws Creek.
Okay.
We found this hill. It was a pretty open hill. And you had posted on my Facebook feed, along with yours, 3 pictures, I believe, right?
Yep.
So those 3 pictures, a friend of mine didn't have any of the equipment. He had a pretty fancy camera, and it's hindsight. You're not going to be able to dig somebody out, but to be able to document something as he did that day, we look back on it and be like, okay, well, one, we're on an open face slope, 0 trees on it other than off to the right or the left.
Yeah.
And just like back in the day, like we had talked about, our ego gets the best of us. Man, he's got an awesome built sled, turbo sled or nitrous on it. And back in December of 2007, there's not a whole lot of turbo sleds out there then. So we did massive motor work to them, port and polish. And so this was kind of like a little test hill that we were pounding on for a few minutes, and a buddy of mine got stuck. And I'm just like, probably 95% of the guys out there, we can't swallow our pride and say, I'm going to let you dig yourself out. We race right up there and help our friend. I mean, he's stuck, right? I mean, that's the kind of the gentlemanly way of helping another friend out. Well, the gentleman that I had went up to help out, didn't know him at all. Had his helmet on. He was just another rider. So I went up to help him get unstuck, and strategically placed my sled facing downhill. I'd learned a little tech tip from Jim Phelan, the Thunderstruck guys, coming down a fairly steep, slope that my brakes weren't, they weren't stopping me hardly. So put my sled in reverse, and I was able to dig, a little bit of a hole, and got off my sled and walked over to my buddy, started helping him dig his sled out. And man, this is yeah, it's
flashback,
tough.
right?
It's kind of tough to talk about still, but
Yeah. I mean,
next
this
thing I
is,
know,
I mean, just to let you catch your breath for a minute, I'll just say is like, this
yeah,
is the moment that all hell broke loose, right?
it
Like
did. Yes,
the hill fractured.
feet went
You're,
out from underneath me.
yep.
I was everything I could do to hold on to my handlebars. I wasn't even sitting on my sled yet. Feet went out from underneath me, and then it was light and dark, and I knew something was drastically happening. And I didn't get hurt, like the snowmobile tumbling over me. Um, Getting down towards the bottom of the hill, I vividly remember somebody coming up towards me, like they were, kind of a Superman. I'm going to sweep you, knight in shining armor kind of a dude. I'm going to sweep you off your feet and rescue you kind of a deal. And later that day, I found out that it was Dan that was, trying to be that hero. And, there's something, the man up above triggered in his head. You better turn around or you're going to be in the middle of it as well.
Yeah.
Dan's brother, Mike Adams, kept eyes on me, which is huge in an avalanche. Don't try not to take your eyes off of the last place you saw somebody, because then you have a starting point. And things came to rest, and it was pretty dark. I didn't pass out. I could hear them walking on top of the snow above me, and everything I could do. I'm pretty loud vocally, and I was screaming as hard as I could, and nobody could hear me. One of the pictures that I shared with you is a photo of Dan kneeling over my helmet after Mike had probed a few times and probed me in the back of the helmet, and he said he'd got me. I could hear him probing through the snow. That was like eerie. So Dan, was digging with his bare hands. A few shovels were out. I think Mike was the only one that had his probes once he finally got them assembled. But yeah, it was a struggle, fight for my life for sure. The weight was pretty unbearable. I was over a pond, which was another kind of a life-threatening besides suffocating. The deposition pile was so heavy, it crushed and broke through the ice. Wow. And and one of the pictures, if you zoom in on it, where we're all standing at the bottom after the aftermath, after they dug me out, you can see a little fracture line, and that's pond water. My legs were wet.
Wow.
So I was face down, like not typical. I mean, all avalanches are different.
Yeah.
But statistically, you're buried face down, downhill, because we're trying to swim out of it. I mean, that's like when you throw a cat up in the air, what's he trying to do? He flounders to try and get back on his feet. And that's about all I could remember doing. If I had an Abby bag that day, could I have pulled it? I highly doubt it. There was so much stuff going through my head that, it's definitely a life-changing situation.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pause you for a second, because I mean, what you just shared was an incredibly powerful moment in story, and I want you to kind of gather your thoughts while I share some thoughts here. Is that, think about it, like you just said it, and it's like if we were in even a modern day scenario, if we've had the training, the first thing we would tell ourselves is not more than one person on the slope at a time, right?
Absolutely.
And even before that, our training and our education would have looked at the avalanche danger that day and the rating and what's the risk. And I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you guys probably didn't even know what an avalanche forecast was back then, right?
Nope.
Good chance. Yep.
Had a flip phone.
Exactly, right? And so nobody was going to the website. Nobody was doing an avalanche forecast to see what the danger rating was. And in your mind, you had ridden this hill 1,000 times probably, or 100 times at least, right?
We were on it for a good 45 minutes. And side hilling, racing up it, down it.
Yep. And so it's a very, very common story with these avalanches is that, it's not the first run that it breaks. A lot of times it's after, multiple hits of the same hill. And, and so that's the part is like, there's other pieces to this too, is that you mentioned this, and I just want to really call this out, is like, even if you had an avalanche backpack on, could you or would you have been in the mindset in that moment to be conscious enough to even think about reaching over and grabbing it, right?
I don't think I would have. Honestly, I would have
Yeah.
been. I'd have been lying to you if I said, "Yep, I 100% would
Yeah.
have pulled my bag."
Yeah.
But
And here's the thing that, it's probably a little, I'll just say it for myself, is it's probably a little controversial, but, people challenge me sometimes like, well, why are you okay with people not riding with you without an airbag? And I'm like, actually, I am, because like the way I look at an airbag is that if you have your shovel, beacon, and probe and an avalanche education training, and you're riding with a crew that's riding safe, the likelihood of you actually getting into an avalanche and needing the avalanche bag is extremely low. The avalanche bag simply becomes kind of that last ditch effort tool after you've already
we have
made
a
the
halo.
mistake. Yeah, after you've already made the mistake, now it's like, oh crap, I'm going to pull the bag. Do I ride with an airbag backpack? I absolutely, because I'm able, frankly, let's say I'm able to afford it, so it's in my
Right.
budget. And why wouldn't I give myself every tool possible to save my life, even if it doesn't, right? Like, why not
Absolutely.
take that chance? So yes, I'm an advocate of airbags and all that stuff too. But if you have $400 or $500 or $600 to spend, and that's the only money you have to spend, I would tell you not,
Buy the equipment.
buy
Buy
the
the shovel,
equipment,
beacon,
but get the
probes,
but get the training, right? Like the
and then get the
training.
training.
Yeah. So beacon, shovel, probe is a non-negotiable. Those are like they have to happen, right?
And they have
And
to be on you,
and they have to be
not on
on
the
you
sled.
exactly in your backpack, not on your sled. And then the training. But I'm saying is if you're going to decide between an avalanche bag and education, get the education every time, right?
Yes.
It's a no-brainer, right? Every single time. And so now we're in the situation where you're coming down the hill, people have eyes on you, right?
Yep.
And that's what saved your life. Because frankly, if everybody had run and turned around and went out sideways, the
I was.
technology and the training that they had, they likely wouldn't have found you, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the fact that somebody watched you to your last point of rest, you were
Yep.
completely buried, it sounds like. So there's no visual
Yep.
cues at all, other
About
than,
about 5 foot down.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
huge. Like that's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've already described it once, but like, the you were conscious the whole time. Like, were you breathing? Were you not breathing? You were talking about
Very,
screaming, but like
very rapid. Short breaths, super rapid.
because you're encased in concrete almost is what it feels like,
Yeah.
right? And so
Absolutely.
so your chest and your body needs to fluctuate in order to move. And if you are encased in this concrete, like your chest doesn't have opportunity to move, and so you're
Yep.
slowly losing air. And
Yep.
luckily, these guys. Was there an estimate after the fact of how
About
long you were under the snow?
about 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, thank God it was
Seemed
under
like
5.
eternity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like because about that 5 to 8 minute mark is about when people start losing consciousness, and then this lights
Yep.
out, and then it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you maybe aren't going to come back, right? If
Yeah.
you can be rescued in under 15 minutes, under 5 minutes, there's a good high chance if you didn't get trauma.
Yes.
And in your case, there was not anything for you to hit. It sounds like other than maybe
No.
some buried rocks, right? It was just kind of a
Yeah.
runout zone, but there was a terrain trap. Let's talk about what a terrain trap is and what terrain trap you went into, which was this pond, right? That kind of
Yeah.
collected and now had
Yeah.
some water soaking up in it.
Yeah.
But just in general, describe to people what a terrain trap is if you're comfortable doing that. If not, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Train trap is where if you take a beach ball and it's the path of least resistance on where the snow is going to go. So if you take a beach ball and roll it off of a hill, where's the snow going to go? It's going to follow the way the terrain is developed, and train traps can be super significant. Like when we leave Gray's River Trail, you're in a train trap 90% of the way up to our meadows. It's got a 30-degree grade or slope on either side of you, and we're riding right down by the river.
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty crazy that people, they send guides, not even guides, but like the rental companies around here, it's an option for you to check that box. Do you want a beacon? Nope. Do you want probes? Nope. You want a 2-up sled? Yep. It's like how many people go by our shop and they have helmets on and they've got a little one in front of them and their
it's so
wife is
scary.
behind them, and they have no clue on 2 miles down the road, man, it's a beautiful sight here because they're riding along the river. But if they look on each side of them, man, they're at the bottom of Mother Nature's wrath.
Yeah. And
And
it sounds like
we see,
Avalanche shoots all the way up to both sides, right? Yeah.
we do, we cross them, and that's kind of the big humbling experience when we take, try and get sidetracked again, but to take our groups up and over, avalanche debris on the trail. And they're like, holy cow. And we're 2 miles down the trail from the shop. And we're like, yeah, avalanches do happen here.
Yeah.
And they cross our trails, our trail systems.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. What you've already described is very common here as well. Is you get a lot of folks who are maybe novice riders, beginner riders, or just maybe fair weather riders, and they don't even really have a mountain sled. And they don't intend to go out into avalanche terrain, and like, oh, I'll just ride the trails. And I've shared over and over again my own experiences of seeing avalanches come over a trail. And I've had a close enough call to that where we had a group of, I think it was about 6 or 8 riders in a group, and the snow was so deep that day, we were legit just busting snow through the trail, right? We couldn't even hardly get off trail, it was so deep. And just going down the trail, I'm the tail gunner, I'm the guy in the back, right? And I come up on the group and I see 2 or 3 guys ahead of me, and then they stopped. And so I get off my sled and I walk up, I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? Why are we stopped? And I look and I'm saying, like, oh, the other half of our group is over there. And then I look down and I'm like, oh, there's no tracks across the trail. Like
And it
literally
just slipped.
an avalanche split our group in half. Luckily, nobody was hit. We had
Yeah.
enough distance between us, but like, it was a small avalanche, thank God, right? Nobody
Yep.
got hurt, but it was something that could have swept somebody off the trail and down into the trees and gotten hurt pretty bad.
Yeah.
And in those situations, it's like just eye-opening that, on a high avalanche to end your day with a lot of pow that's just fallen on who knows what kind of a base layer, if you haven't been following the forecast, you could be riding down the trail and be in just as much trouble as anybody else. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So let's go back to the recovery. So you're in the snow, they're digging you up. Thank God
Yep.
you're still alive and you're conscious. Let's
Yep.
talk then about what happened over the next 30 minutes to 2 hours. Like, did everybody just immediately? I don't know. I don't want to assume. So you just covered what happened from there.
So Dan was over the top of me, digging snow out of my helmet so that I could breathe. I was wearing quick strap goggles. Every time I wanted to stop, instead of taking my goggles off and putting them on my handlebars or whatever, I just usually flip them back. I mean, that was the neatest, coolest thing back in the early 2000s. And those got completely ripped off my helmet.
Wow.
So I wear a goggle with a strap, and it's cinched pretty dang tight to my face now. After they got me out, we all kind of sat back and was like, man, what did we do wrong?
Yeah.
It's loading the slope, not having the training on equipment, just assuming that everybody had, shovel, beacon, probes. And, one of my friends that day that I brought out to introduce to Dan, he had that $high camera and took a few photos, and it changed his life as well. He worked with my wife, Michelle, at Intermountain Roofing. And I remember her telling me, she's like, man, this guy is spending some money now on shovel, probe, beacon. He's like, he's going to be ready for the next time you guys go out.
Yeah.
And it was a huge eye-opening experience for sure.
Yeah. Now, to imagine there was a moment in time, whether it be immediately or even a few days later, that you probably questioned whether you were ever going to go out again. I would imagine that's a pretty normal reaction, right? So tell us about that. Tell us about that thought process and kind of how you kind of came to grips with what happened and whether you were willing to risk going out again and what your conversations with folks like Dan Adams was. Because at some point, this whole experience triggered the thought process of we need to educate other riders, right? And so let's take us to that point.
So, we kind of took like a weekend off and, just sat back and discussed on, let's get new batteries and everything. Let's try and practice. Let's see what we can do to be more efficient out on the hill. And I think that's kind of the turning point in my life that, Dan, he kind of held me by the hand and said, hey, you got to get back on that horse, man. He's like, we have fun together. I mean, he's like a brother to me that, thank God for, your friends that do kick you in the butt per se and say, just let's put it behind us and we learn from it.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty stoked to have that part and those friends that are still, in my community here in Alpine. I see Rob Hoff, I see Tim Hoff. Those guys were there the day that I got buried.
Yep.
Dave Daniels, he was involved in it. Mike Adams, Dan's brother. I'm pretty dang close to Mike, and Tony Saunders, he was there. So I've got a special connection with these 8 guys that they saved my life, and vice versa. Did I save theirs as well? Probably. I mean, who would rather be up above the snow or below the snow?
Lesson learned either way.
It's a lesson learned either way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
if you're there to watch that happen, you learned a lesson that day, and if you were the guy under the snow, you learned a lesson that day. Luckily, everybody survived to
Yeah.
to put those lessons into practice then afterwards, which brings us to that concept of getting Dan going and you going with him, right?
Yep. And so I wasn't able to go full time with Dan. I had to be an adult. I had 2 boys that I was still raising.
That's
so
awesome.
I had to work. I was able to join him like on the weekends or whatever to do some clinics. And my riding ability and my riding style has changed drastically. Being able to share with people, train management, let's work on this or let's work on that. And now being a part of Next Level for the last 6 years full time, I learn every day.
Yep.
I don't quit learning, and I learn from every one of my clients that come through Next Level. And I say it like they're my clients. They're Dan and Next Level's clients, but you establish a relationship with a lot of people, and you learn, to make a better coach or a guide, and to be, not a life coach, but a coach to somebody that you can do this. Just try and apply these techniques. And then when we get to the avalanche part of the class, that's where I kind of step in, and I am, Dan and I play good cop, bad cop, and I'm the bad cop. I start yelling, and like I want for everybody to walk away with, man, I didn't really think that I had the knowledge, and they go home and they practice. I get emails, and I've got a few thousand followers on Facebook now, which is pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of people that reach out to me and say, hey, what's updated this? What are you doing this time? What are you doing different this year? And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's amazing
when
you can share these stories and know that you're making a positive difference to others and influencing others to take action in their own safety and education journey. So
yeah, and it's really cool to see, when we do our avalanche scenarios, we're trying to make people prepared, that when something does happen, whether it's a small injury, getting them out of the backcountry, learn how to splint using Mother Nature, having a saw, the simple little tiny things to splint somebody. Do you have an extra pair of socks? Well, when something majorly drastically happens, when somebody's life depends on you to dig them out, and you have 1 or 2 people that know how to do it, but the rest of your group doesn't, I didn't do my part right. I want to share and make everybody a team leader, step up to the plate, delegate things out, assign people, when we're in a time of stress, I'm 40, I'll be 46 next month, man. I shut down, my motor skills shut down when something's going awry.
Yeah.
And
let's talk about that for a minute, because that's the real deal right there, right? And I think even the people who've gone through a class and a training and a scenario, like it's one thing to go through the training and do it, but like really there's nothing that replaces hands-on practice. And to some degree within your riding group, hands-on practice from a standpoint of surprise practice, right? Like put somebody in charge for the day and say, hey, Bob, at some point today, you need to call an avalanche drill. Don't tell us when, just surprise us with it, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Bob's going to come up and say like, okay, guys, avalanche now, go over there. Let's rescue this guy. We got to get our beacons out, shovel probe, whatever. Let's go rescue this guy, right? And everybody goes through the drill and gets their equipment out, goes and practices. And in that panic moment, somebody else is timing it and keep track of it, right? Like you survived
Absolutely.
4.5 minutes under the snow. How many more minutes would have you maybe not survived, right? Like, and that's the thing people need to remember. And it's your loved one. It's not just a perfect stranger. Like to some degree, Jason, most of the people who watch this you'll be a stranger to them, right? And so hearing the story is powerful. But now I want them to know that you're a husband, right?
Yep.
You're a father, right?
To two boys, Kevin and Zach.
And now everybody who's watching, look your spouse, look your kids in the eye, and imagine they're the ones under the snow, right? And how powerful that is and what that means. And if you still don't take avalanche training seriously, you probably should be in a different sport. You know.
And just to touch on that, you know, when your loved one's out there, and say I'm under the snow, and my wife's above the snow, you know, she'll frantically screaming. You know, somebody has to be that voice of reason.
Yeah.
So when we teach an avalanche, you know, preparedness, you know, we're prepping people to be team leaders, delegate things out. Because if we don't have the leadership, you know, we shut down and we forget to do things.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't open up, you know, like when we have our ladies classes, which is really kind of my focus that I like to describe about, is the ladies that we have, they'll stop us in the middle of the training and be like, stop, we just botched it. We just messed up. Start over, rebury it. And they start learning from that mistake that they made. And we'll spend, you know, 3 or 4 hours burying that backpack. Well, I started carrying 2 backpacks with me because we'll jump from one scenario right into another one not too far away. You know, I'll change up the terrain a little bit. I'll do a burial on flat ground. And the ladies in our classes, besides the camaraderie, they're friends. They could be relatives that come, you know, from all over the world or whatever. And when they leave there, every one of those ladies is a leader now. And they go back and they tell their husbands, hey, we're doing this. We're going to practice.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. You know, and it's pretty humbling even for me as a coach.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That we get to do that.
Yeah. So Jason, I think we've done a good job of kind of, you know, kicking this off and going through and getting everybody the idea of like, you know, what drove and motivated you and Dan to kind of kick off the next level riding clinics. And so think a little bit about what they're too, because what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to read some comments that are coming in from Facebook, and you can just kind of gather your thoughts on what else you want to cover before we wrap the show up. You know, think about sponsors, people you want to thank, you know, reminders for people, whatever. But we have Andrew Koenig here. I'm hoping I'm saying his last name right.
Yes.
Yeah. He says, hey, Jason.
I know Andrew.
He says the avalanche training that you put on at the clinic was awesome. Such a crazy story. Ryan Cook out of Wyoming, who I know. I don't know if you know him or not, but he says, dude, that brought tears to my eyes, actually. Glad someone above was looking out for a sled brother, right?
Yeah.
And then we have Trish Ryan says, thanks for sharing. Jason, it seems technology and gear has come so far, but the training and practice is key. Glad you're okay. And Trish, and that's a big call out, right? It's like, you know, there's so many people who go out and they go to the snow show, which may or may not happen this year with COVID, right? But, you know, they go out and they buy the equipment and they think they're good, maybe because they took an awareness class or did a little bit of online training. And the part we continue to want to just preach to people, and we're legit going to preach because it's so necessary, is, you know, get into first an avalanche awareness, and then get into a companion rescue course of some kind, or an on the snow course, and then get into a level 1 course. And if you want to, jump right into a level 1, because it's ultimately where you need to go. Level 1, maybe a level 2 someday, but for sure level 1, everybody in the backcountry that's riding should have under their belt. It's really what makes the difference. And then we got
and kind of touch on that level 1 now. You know, being a part of ARI, you know, helping rewrite the curriculum a few years ago. Matt Entz was involved. Really good friend of mine, Josh Roth, and he had lost his life a few years ago. But there was 10 of us that got to help, you know, kind of take a skier-based curriculum, which I took. And, I mean, you know me, you saw me in the flesh. I'm not super athletic. I don't run, I don't hike, I don't snowshoe. My mode of transportation's got to have a motor on it. I dirt bike in the summertime,
Yep.
jet ski. I jet skied this last weekend with Dan, and snowmobiling in the wintertime. So to have that proper training as well, skier based, we still have a lot of the same key points to it.
Yep.
And they study, the facets of snow and the science and digging pits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to have, more key. So in your area, kind of throw a shout out to like Matty Entz or anybody else that's on the RE that, Brian or Tyler's Backcountry.
Yep.
He's a part of that. These guys, Will, you had him on the show.
Matt and Will up at Mountain Riding Lab, and then
absolutely.
Brett Rasmussen's part of the ARI program as well. So
yep. So check in, and it's just a general, check in with your local snowmobile club. They might even have somebody there that's gone through that training.
Yeah.
Network the stuff out. Don't keep it bottled up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if anybody, and I'll just throw this out there, if anybody does have any avalanche training that's going on in your area and you want to get the word out a little bit broader, maybe more nationally, share it with me or tag me in it, and I'll see it and say, hey, John, feel free to share, and I'm happy to do so. I'm sure Jason will do the same for you.
Absolutely.
And continue to get the word out, right, and get people trained. So there's some more comments here I'll continue to go through. It says, Rick from Altitude Sickness, another friend of yours, friend of ours, both, says, what's up, John? Long time no see, Jason. The better half of Altitude Sickness finally got online. He's laughing about it a little bit. So, but
that's
I know,
awesome.
Yeah, there's another comment from him coming up here, I think, too. But he's basically references the fact that a big reason for altitude sickness and everything that's going on is because of the inspiration folks like yourself and Dan have provided after seeing experiences, talking to you guys, and the need for it, and what's there. So you guys are making an impression, making a difference through just other people being inspired as well to make a difference. So.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm not the bad guy now yelling at people, dig, shovel. Like if you could come to one of our classes, if you were like the fly on the wall per se, you'd be like, man, that guy's off his nut. Like he's crazy. Why is he yelling at these people? But it's to build
a sense of urgency,
bit of adrenaline.
Yeah.
We got to have some motivation in people. Otherwise, if you don't practice with a little enthusiasm or, that stopwatch that you were saying, time them.
Yep.
They'll just walk through it and they'll be like, yep, we found it.
Yep.
Now what do we do? And
now do it again 100 times faster.
you kind of don't, you still learn from it. Don't get me wrong there.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't feel that it's the same.
Yeah.
And, I've had a lot of people go back to the ladies' classes. 90% of our females, and I'm going to throw a big shout out to Vicky real quick, Vicky Saywert.
Sure.
That, every time she's in a class, she breaks down in tears, and it's like, man, you know my story, what you're going to go through. And she's like, it's different scenarios every time we do it.
Yep.
And she either learns a lot more, or she's like, man, I forgot about that. Let's do it again, and it's pretty dang cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I got about 6 more comments to read through here quick, and then we'll wrap this up. We're pushing a pretty good time slot here too. We're already at like 58 plus minutes, and people are loving it. So
I was nervous about doing a half hour.
I know, right? So we're all good. So Brad Jepson says, keep up the great live feed that you do, John. And so shout out there. Lyric Murphy, as you know, says, Jason, It takes a lot of courage to share your story. It gives me chills every time I hear it and can relate to it on many levels. As you know, if you watched Lyric's show, she had a story that she shared as well in her experience. And then I already shared a comment that Rick had shared earlier. And then John Miller, you guys know him, Backcountry United, says, always a pleasure riding with the guys at Next Level. And I'll just do a shout out too, as I've got John Miller scheduled for an episode coming up here too. I don't know if it's the next 2-3 weeks or so roughly, but that'll be coming up here not too far down the road. Looking forward to that one. And then it says, John, thanks for having Jason share a story. I had no idea this opened my eyes. So again, we're making a difference here live on the air as we're reading through this. Alex Cole, who's Lyric's son, says, I pray I never have to experience an avalanche firsthand, but I'm in
Yeah.
the mindset of it's inevitable. To circumvent it as much as possible, I'm getting the necessary training. Was supposed to do it last year, but got called back to work after the first day of class. I'll be rectifying this season. So again, more people taking action based on the stories that we keep
Nice.
telling. And of course, our friend Aaron McCarthy, who was on with Dan last weekend, he's watching live, and he says,
Man.
Jason's a great dude. Love the sled." And so, of course, you got his sled all set up for him. Cameron Comenti from 3C Guiding. You know, all
Yep.
these celebrities are watching you, buddy. They're all here to support you and push you up.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
He says, "Nice show, guys." And we have Ian McNichol from up north. He says, "You guys do great work. Can't wait for the new season. Wish there was a show. I wish there was a show did this in Canada." Oh, I'm not sure if he means like an avalanche training class or something up in Canada. I'm sure there is, Ian. I'm not sure if you mean the show itself, like my show, or if you're talking about the avalanche training. But if you need help getting in touch with any avalanche education stuff too, just hit me up. Even in Canada, I've got quite a few connections. I can put you in touch with folks. So
yeah, I got some connections up there for sure.
Yeah,
you know,
and then of course
learned a lot from Jeremy Hankey.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep. And then of course Eric Budge, who we all know, is shouting out 12 Fridays to POW. It's POW time in 12 Fridays. So love it, love it, love it. So yeah, let's think about, like, Jason, what have we not talked about? Is there any thank yous you want to push out there, anything like that, or sponsors you want to recognize for what they do to help you guys do what you do? Just go for it.
Yeah. Man, I just give a shout out to you, dude.
Oh man.
I don't hear a whole lot about that. You know, they say thank you for the show and whatnot, but you're you're pretty humbling. You know, it's not about, you know, the big guy out there. You like to reach out and hear that story from the little person and upcoming people. Yep. So it's an honor to be on your show, dude. I've followed you for quite a few episodes, and I want one of those shirts. I need a hashtag Live Large shirt.
Yep. I got the website's there, and you can help support Ari through making an order.
Absolutely.
I could send you one, but then we're cutting money out of the budget to train more people.
I know, right? Yeah, I'll send you some goods for this as well. But Climb, you know, I wear all their gear. They keep me warm. They've got Abbey backpacks and everything that you could possibly ever think of, from tie downs to casual wear. You know.
Yep.
Underwear, mid layers,
Yep.
Helmets, all sorts of stuff. And then
so Jason, I'm gonna leak a secret that nobody knows yet. This is the first time anybody's hearing about it. So don't tell anybody, okay? Like, don't tell anybody. But you're aware that last year Climb did a fundraiser for avalanche safety, and they sold raffle tickets for a snowmobile, right? Mm-hmm. So rumor has it, may or may not be true, that they're planning on doing it again this year.
That'd be cool. Yeah, totally.
And
I'm kind of out of the loop with social media.
And guess what? I've been on the phone with them.
Have you?
And there might be a Live Large logo on the side of that sled they give away this year. Let's just say that.
That's pretty rad. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Dan keeps me.
Yeah, the funds that they're going to raise too, it sounds like they're at least willing to provide a portion of those funds to ARI and the Live Large University Scholarship Program and stuff as well too. And we're working on getting even more people involved too. So Marlon Sled Decks I've been on the phone with. There's other companies getting so this thing is about to blow up in a way that I never could have imagined. And
that's cool.
You know, yeah. I'm so humbled by all of this, guys. It's like, and Jason, that's probably one of the things too. Is like. It's like, I love you, dude. Like, we just met, but like, you're already my best friend. Like we had it, and I'm out on the lake. Like, here's how this day went, guys. I want to make sure everybody knows this, right? It's like, you know, you and Dan are like hustling. Like, you guys are making summer money. You're like, you know, on the road till like 6 o'clock at night. You got to go home, see your family, and have dinner. And somewhere, I don't even know what time it was, like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. You're finally, I was like, hey John, like, I'm finally available. Are you still in town? And I'm like, well, hell yeah, of course I am. I got on the boat with Cody Hunt. We just got off the water, right? We were out there, watching the sunset out on the lake.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you took the time in a busy day to reach out to me and invite me out for, to have a beer and just some good conversation. What I told you was going to be a 15-minute conversation turned into like an hour and a half conversation. And my son and I didn't get back to our hotel room that night until midnight, I think it was, because we were over in Rexburg because everything was booked in Alpine. And I got to share with you, still to this day, my son continues to talk about you as the favorite part of his entire 3-week vacation. The fact that you got to hook him up with sitting in your car. Tell everybody about your car for a minute. We got to tell that story. Like, tell everybody about your car.
So I got a 2015 smart car.
It's amazing.
and I get so much crap cruising around in that car because I'm 6'3", and they're like, "How do you fit in that car?" And then when I roll up to some place and it's bumping, I got tunes in it. It's got a little bit of a system in it, but yeah, I'm still a kid at heart.
Yeah.
So.
But my son's a big music fan, and he's also a big technology fan. And so, like, I keep telling him, as his dad, me, like, I was car stereo guy back in high school myself. I had a Volkswagen Jetta with like 4 12-inch subwoofers in the trunk and 3,000 watts or 4,000 watt system in it, and the thing just screamed, right, and bumped and stuff too. And now to see my kid get excited about your car, that made my day, and it made his whole trip. That was the highlight of his entire vacation. So
that's pretty awesome.
It was awesome.
Hope to see you again, in person, not on
Skype.
Well,
if Mr. Budge and Dan Adams and Aaron McCarthy has their way, you guys will see me again this winter at some point. So
I think that'd be pretty dang cool.
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome.
For sure.
All right, guys.
Appreciate your time tonight, man.
Yeah, vice versa,
Appreciate
buddy. And so I'm just going to tell all the audience, if you still have not shared this out, please do everybody that you know a favor and share this story. It will save someone's life, and they will get to know an amazing man named Jason Blair.
Thank you.
Dude, God bless everybody. Live large. Have a fantastic night, everybody.